Welcome to the Mystery and History channel. Be sure to subscribe and like so you don't miss out on more videos like this one. The Bhopal disaster occurred on December 3, 1984, when about 44 short tons of methyl isocyanate escaped from the Union Carbide plant, reaching the city while the population slept. Between 15,000 and 25,000 people lost their lives, and more than 500,000 were exposed to the gas. Warren Anderson, chief executive officer of Union Carbide, was detained and released, never returning to India. In 2001, Dow Chemical acquired Union Carbide without accepting responsibility for the incident, one of the largest in history. Emmett Till, a 14-year-old black teenager, became a symbol of the fight against racism in the United States after he was killed in Mississippi in 1955. Unjustly accused of bothering a white woman, his case exposed racial violence in the segregated South, creating national and international outrage. The public funeral had a powerful impact across the country, helping drive the civil rights movement and mobilizing action against racial injustice and institutional discrimination. The Wounded Knee episode on December 29, 1890, was one of the darkest chapters in United States history. Soldiers from the 7th Cavalry Regiment surrounded a Lakota camp, and in less than an hour, the action resulted in 250 to 300 losses among men, women, and children, many without weapons. The use of artillery against civilian tents worsened the case. The victims were buried collectively, and 20 soldiers received the Medal of Honor, a tribute that remains controversial today. Foot binding, an ancient practice in China, involved compressing the feet of girls between 4 and 7 years old and bending the toes downward, creating the lotus foot, a symbol of beauty and social status. Required for marriage, it caused permanent changes and reduced women's mobility. It is estimated that up to 1 billion went through this over the centuries, showing the weight of social norms until the practice was banned in the early 20th century. The black community of Greenwood in Tulsa, Oklahoma, known as Black Wall Street, was devastated over 16 hours during the episode of May 31, 1921. Armed men, including with the use of aircraft, set fire to homes, hospitals, schools, and businesses, causing up to 300 losses and leaving 10,000 people without housing. For decades, the case was omitted from books and was only officially investigated in 1997, exposing structural racism in the United States. Willowbrook became known for one of the most controversial episodes in medical research in the United States after children with intellectual disabilities were exposed to the hepatitis virus between 1955 and 1970. Led by New York University, these studies used the school's poor environment to justify the exposure, often with permission obtained in questionable ways. The public reaction helped strengthen ethics codes in biomedical research, reinforcing the protection of patient rights. Between 1946 and 1948, the United States government conducted a study in Guatemala in which prisoners, soldiers, and patients in psychiatric institutions were exposed to infections without consent in order to test penicillin. The National Institutes of Health and the Public Health Service funded the study, which was kept secret until 2010 when historian Susan Reverby revealed the facts. The case led President Obama to apologize to the Guatemalan government, showing serious ethical failures. Manfred Sackel developed insulin coma therapy in the 1930s, a treatment for severe psychiatric conditions that induced a deep state through high doses of insulin. Used until the mid-20th century in psychiatric institutions, it aimed to relieve complex symptoms but carried dangers such as hypoglycemia and neurological complications. This method marked a stage in the evolution of psychiatry and influenced techniques before modern antipsychotic medications. Residents of southern Utah and Nevada became downwinders after witnessing atomic tests in the Nevada desert between the 1950s and 1960s, less than about 62 miles from their homes. Encouraged by the Atomic Energy Commission to watch the events, many were exposed to radiation, leading to an increase in serious illnesses. In 1990, Congress acknowledged responsibility but limited compensation, leaving many without proper reparations. The attack on the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama, on September 15, 1963, marked the civil rights struggle in the United States. During a church service, members of an extremist group placed an explosive device that took the lives of 4 girls, Addie Mae Collins, Cynthia Wesley, Carol Robertson, and Carol Denise McNair, and affected 22 people. The act occurred in the year of Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech, revealing the racial hatred of the time. The Federal Bureau of Investigation convicted one of those responsible, reaffirming the fight against racism. After the collapse of Chernobyl Reactor 4 in April 1986, about 600,000 workers were called in to contain the emergency in the Soviet Union. To remove contaminated graphite from the reactor roof where robots failed, human workers endured extreme radiation doses, often above recommended levels. These biorobots took on brief exposures to prevent even greater contamination and became recognized for their courage. Their effort was vital in preventing a larger crisis. Unit 731 of the Imperial Japanese Army committed serious violations between 1937 and 1945 in China, carrying out extreme research with biological agents, procedures without medical ethics, and controlled exposure to diseases among detained people. Physical and environmental tests were conducted without humanitarian standards. After the defeat, General MacArthur granted immunity to the commanders in exchange for data, preventing formal accountability and revealing the political bargaining of the post-war period. The collision between the SS Mont Blanc, loaded with explosive material, and the SS Emo in the Halifax Narrows on December 6, 1917, caused the largest human-made detonation before the atomic bomb, with the force of 2.9 kilotons of trinitrotoluene equivalent. The occurrence devastated the Richmond district, caused about 2,000 losses, affected 9,000 people, and left more than 1,500 with visual damage. The shock wave was felt more than 186 miles away, marking one of the most tragic World War I episodes in Canada. The earthquake that struck San Francisco on April 18, 1906, caused structural collapse and a major fire that worsened the damage. General Frederick Funston, disregarding civilian authority, ordered the use of dynamite to create fire breaks, but the soldiers' lack of preparation spread the flames. Reports also indicate abuse of force against civilians who resisted evacuation, a fact omitted from the official version for decades, revealing excesses in emergency control. The SS Eastland incident on July 24, 1915 was one of the largest maritime occurrences in the United States, with 848 losses among 2,500 passengers, most of them Czech and Polish immigrants. The ship quickly rolled over while still docked on the Chicago River because of stability failures. Despite the severity, the captain was acquitted and the case was forgotten, overshadowed by World War I and rarely mentioned in school books. The Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire on March 25, 1911 in New York was one of the most important episodes in American industrial history, causing 146 losses among workers, most of them young immigrants. Locked doors blocked the exit, pushing people into extreme situations. The owners were tried and acquitted. The episode drove labor reforms and strengthened the union movement, promoting advances in worker safety and rights. The Johnstown flood on May 31, 1889, caused more than 2,200 losses of life after the South Fork Lake Dam broke because of heavy rain, flooding the valley with about 22 million short tons of water. The episode involved the South Fork Fishing and Hunting Club, made up of industrial elites such as Carnegie and Mellon, who ignored warnings about structural problems. No one was held responsible, and affected families received no compensation, showing social inequality and lack of accountability. The Galveston hurricane on September 8, 1900, was the deadliest natural event in United States history, devastating much of the city on an island about 9 feet above sea level. Waves of about 20 feet caused between 6,000 and 12,000 losses of life. Cuban meteorologist Lorenzo Rojo warned the government, but he was ignored because of rivalries within the United States Weather Bureau. The episode marked Galveston's decline, and the city never regained its former prestige. The Great Smog of London in 1952 was a serious environmental crisis caused by heavy coal burning, which formed a polluted layer over the city for 4 days, reducing visibility and causing thousands of losses linked to breathing problems. This event exposed the effects of urban pollution and led the British government to create the Clean Air Act in 1956, a pioneering law for air quality control and public health protection. Operation Crossroads in July 1946 at Bikini Atoll was one of the first military atomic tests, setting off an underwater charge near 73 ships used as targets. The event created a column of water contaminated by radiation that hit the ships, exposing sailors involved in cleaning the decks, a risky and ineffective effort. Animals were used to measure biological impacts, revealing severe effects and influencing the control of nuclear testing. In January 1968, a United States B-52 aircraft had an incident in Greenland while carrying 4 B-28 hydrogen devices, one of which was never recovered and remained under the ice of Baffin Bay. The partial rupture spread radioactive material, triggering a cleanup operation with more than 700 workers in Arctic conditions. The episode stayed secret for more than 10 years, revealing the dangers of the Cold War. The incident at 3 Mile Island on March 28, 1979 in Pennsylvania, marked the history of nuclear energy in the United States. The failure of the cooling pump in Unit 2 exposed part of the reactor core, causing public alarm and leading officials to recommend temporary evacuation for pregnant women and children within a 5-mile radius. More than 140,000 people left the region, while authorities issued conflicting statements for 5 days. The episode caused a loss of trust that stalled new plants for decades. In the late 19th century, electrotherapy became popular, promising to relieve pain and physical problems linked to modern exhaustion. Electric devices sold for home use and in pharmacies offered sessions with electrodes that supposedly revived nerves worn down by the Industrial Revolution. Doctors legitimized the practice in scientific journals, driving an industry that exploited the anxieties of urban workers and marking the relationship between science, technology, and health. Lois Gibbs led a fight after discovering in 1978 that the Love Canal neighborhood in Niagara Falls had been built over about 23,149 short tons of chemical waste, buried by the Hooker Chemical Company. The environmental exposure brought health problems and family concerns, leading to the removal of 950 families and the evacuation of the area. This case exposed failures in environmental law and helped drive the creation of Superfund in 1980, which held companies responsible for cleaning contaminated sites. The Radium Girls, young women hired in the 1910s to paint watch dials with radium-based luminous paint, suffered serious industrial negligence. Encouraged to sharpen brushes with their lips, they were exposed to the ingestion of radioactive material while scientists used protection. When they became ill, the company denied responsibility. In 1927, a lawsuit by 5 of them marked progress in accountability for occupational illnesses and the rights of workers exposed to invisible dangers. The Dalcon Shield, released in 1971 by A.A.H. Robbins, was promoted as a safe contraceptive device, but internal documents showed that the company knew about serious infection risks. It caused pelvic complications, loss of fertility, and at least 18 deaths, with more than 200,000 lawsuits. Removed from the United States market in 1974, it continued to be sold in developing countries until the company went bankrupt in 1985, setting aside $2.47 billion for compensation. Frances Kelsey gained attention in 1960 when she rejected Food and Drug Administration approval of thalidomide despite pressure from the drug company William S. Merrill because of a lack of safety evidence. While the medication caused severe problems in newborns in Europe, Kelsey held her position and prevented the crisis from affecting the United States. President Kennedy honored her with the Federal Civilian Service Gold Medal in 1962, showing the impact of her decision. Mark Dewey, an investigative journalist, revealed in 1973 internal Ford memos showing that, since the launch of the Pinto in 1971, the company knew its fuel tank could fail in rear-end collisions. The internal analysis concluded that it was cheaper to pay compensation to affected people than to spend $11 per vehicle on a recall, leading to hundreds of losses in fires. This case marked the beginning of modern corporate liability in the United States and sparked debates over business ethics. The reactor incident at the Mesa factory on July 10, 1976, caused a serious environmental crisis in Seveso, northern Italy, releasing a cloud of dioxin, one of the most dangerous chemicals produced. The event affected thousands of animals and caused health problems, such as chloroquine in children. The delay in communication worsened the situation, displacing about 2,000 people. The case led to the creation of the Seveso Directive in the European Union, which regulates chemical safety. The Phoenix Indian School, founded in 1891 in Arizona, was one of more than 350 residential schools created by the United States government for indigenous children in the 19th and 20th centuries. The goal was to assimilate native cultures by separating children from their families and restricting traditional languages and names. Photographs show the imposition of Western uniforms and forced civilization. In 2022, the Department of the Interior identified more than 53 burial sites linked to these schools, revealing lasting impacts. Joseph Merrick, known as the Elephant Man, had severe physical changes from childhood, leading him to public exhibitions starting in 1884. His condition caused unusual growth in the skull and bones, drawing intense public curiosity and creating major personal hardship. Years later, he was taken in by the London Hospital, where he spent his final years under medical care and received visits from elite figures, including the royal family. In 1890, his death revealed the limits imposed by his anatomy. George Washington, the first president of the United States, illustrates the controversial effects of bloodletting, an old medical practice that removed blood to treat illness. On the eve of his death in 1799, he went through 5 sessions, with a large amount removed in just a few hours, which may have worsened his condition. In the 19th century, the excessive use of bloodletting was increasingly questioned. The practice was abandoned after 1850, as studies showed that it did more harm than good. Jacob Riis was a pioneer of social photojournalism when he documented in the 1890s places tied to opium use in Chinatown, New York, where the practice was still legal before the Harrison Act of 1914. These places attracted visitors from many social classes, from rich to poor, revealing urban inequality and the poor conditions faced by Chinese immigrants. The later ban on the substance reflected racial prejudice more than public health concerns, showing the social tensions of the time. Phrenology, created in the late 18th century by Franz Joseph Gall, became prominent in the 19th century as a pseudoscience that claimed to analyze character and intellectual ability through the shape of the skull. Although accepted in universities and used by doctors and employers, it supported theories of racial hierarchy and deviant behavior that legitimized exclusions in courts and schools. Its impact shows how science can be used to support social inequality. Ignaz Semmelweis revolutionized medicine in 1847 by linking losses from childbed fever to contamination caused by doctors who went from anatomy study rooms to childbirth without washing their hands. By introducing washing with hypochlorite, he reduced cases from 18% to less than 2%. His discovery was ignored and rejected by the medical profession, leading to personal difficulties, forced institutionalization, and death from infection, showing resistance to innovation. John Snow stood out by mapping the cholera crisis on Broad Street in London in 1854, revealing that the disease was transmitted through unsafe water. His pioneering epidemiological analysis identified a water pump as the central source of the problem, challenging dominant ideas about contagion. This discovery revolutionized public health, encouraging improvements in sanitation and the control of transmissible diseases, laying the foundation for modern epidemiology. The Stanford Prison Experiment, conducted by Philip Zimbardo in August 1971, showed the rapid deterioration of human behavior in a simulated prison. Students assigned as guards began treating participants in a hostile way within a few days. Even with signs of emotional strain, Zimbardo kept the study going until his girlfriend demanded that it end. The experiment, considered ethically problematic, revealed power dynamics and influenced debates about ethics in psychology. Stanley Milgram conducted an experiment in New Haven in 1961 that showed people's willingness to obey authority figures, even when causing discomfort to others. Volunteers delivered simulated electric shocks, with 65% reaching the maximum level of 450 volts despite staged reactions. Repeated 23 times with variations, the study revealed how extreme obedience can lead to harmful actions, influencing debates on behavior and ethics. Operation Midnight Climax, carried out by the Central Intelligence Agency in the late 1950s as part of the MKUltra program, secretly used psychoactive substances on men to study behavior and interrogations during the Cold War. Women were used to bring participants to apartments with one-way mirrors in San Francisco and New York. Revealed in 1977, it exposed controversial ethical practices and sparked debates about the limits of government power. Operation Paperclip, started in 1945, secretly transferred more than 1,600 scientists linked to the German regime to the United States, where they received new roles and had their pasts minimized. Wernher von Braun, creator of the V-2 rockets used in Europe, became a key figure in the American space program. Hubert Strughold, called the father of space medicine, was involved in controversial research. The Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Army knew, but kept these facts quiet for decades. Alan Turing, a pioneer of computing, broke the Enigma code in World War II, helping speed its end. In 1952, he was convicted in the United Kingdom because of his sexual orientation and subjected to a chemical treatment imposed by the state. This persecution deeply marked his life, which ended in 1954. In 2009, the British government apologized, and in 2013 granted a royal pardon, recognizing the discrimination and his historical importance. The Lavender Scare increased pressure against American public employees suspected of having a sexual orientation considered unacceptable in the 1950s, alongside the political hunts led by Joseph McCarthy. Claiming vulnerability to Soviet blackmail, the government fired more employees for this reason than for communism, totaling more than 1,700 dismissals between 1947 and 1950. In 1957, Frank Kameny challenged this discrimination in court, beginning legal resistance against prejudice in United States public administration. The pellagra crisis in the southern United States between 1906 and 1940 affected more than 3 million people and was caused by a lack of vitamin B3 in a corn-based diet. In 1915, physician Joseph Goldberger proved that the problem came from poor nutrition, but he faced resistance from authorities who avoided admitting regional poverty. His experiments were crucial, although delayed recognition led to more than 100,000 losses of life. In the early hours of June 28, 1969, the Stonewall Inn, a bar frequented by the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and related community in Greenwich Village, was targeted by a police action that led to an unprecedented reaction from customers. This resistance began 6 days of mobilization involving thousands, marking the Stonewall Uprising as the starting point of the modern movement for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and related rights. In 1970, the first Pride Parade took place in the United States, establishing a milestone in the fight for equality. The Zoot Suit riots in Los Angeles in June 1943 showed racial tension in the United States during World War II. Soldiers attacked young Mexican Americans who wore zoot suits in clashes that lasted 10 nights. Police detained the people who had been targeted, and the press ignored the racial bias, portraying the attacks as a fight against delinquency. Although an investigation recognized the prejudice, no federal action was taken, showing the discrimination faced by the community. The Great Migration of 6 million African Americans between 1910 and 1970 was a major social and economic milestone in the United States. Fleeing segregation laws, racial hostility, and poverty in the South, this population moved to northern and western industrial centers such as Chicago, Detroit, and New York, often through the Illinois Central Railroad. The movement changed demographics, helped drive jazz and blues, and was crucial to the rise of the black middle class, shaping social and cultural identity in the 20th century. Black Tuesday in April 1935 was one of the most devastating episodes of the Dust Bowl, when intensive farming practices and severe drought caused huge dust storms across the Great Plains of the United States. More than 3.5 million people, known as Okies, migrated to California in search of work, facing poor conditions and social rejection. Photographer Dorothea Lange documented this exodus with images that marked American history during the Great Depression. In 1932, during the Great Depression, about 43,000 World War I veterans camped in Washington, District of Columbia, demanding early payment of bonuses promised for 1945, becoming known as the Bonus Army. Hoover's government responded with force when General MacArthur disobeyed orders and used troops, military vehicles, and gas to disperse the veterans. The action shook public opinion and influenced Hoover's defeat to Roosevelt in the following election. Josephine Baker, a Black American singer who arrived in Paris in 1925, became the highest-paid performer in Europe, challenging prejudice with her iconic banana skirt at the Folies Bergère. Her performance symbolized both the exotic view of the time and the artistic liberation of people of African descent. In World War II, she worked with the French resistance on intelligence missions, receiving the Croix de Guerre. She was buried in the Pantheon in Paris in 2021, honoring her legacy as a star, heroine, and symbol of resistance. Jesse Owens won 4 gold medals at the Berlin Olympics in 1936, challenging the German regime that promoted ideas of racial superiority. His performance in track and field became a symbol of resistance against prejudice and discrimination, shaping international views on racial equality. Owens entered history by showing that talent and courage can overcome political and social barriers, leaving an inspiring legacy in sports and the civil rights struggle. Jack Johnson became the first black world heavyweight champion in 1908, defeating Tommy Burns in Australia. His breaking of racial barriers, including interracial marriage and public display of success in the early 20th century, caused a strong social reaction and a desire to see him defeated. In 1912, he was detained under the Mann Act for transporting his girlfriend across state lines, a charge widely seen as prejudiced. He left the country and received a posthumous pardon in 2018, recognizing the injustice of the case. Bloody Sunday on March 7, 1965, was a milestone in the civil rights struggle in the United States, exposing violent police action against demonstrators marching from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama, for African American voting rights. The intervention on the Edmund Pettus Bridge was shown on television, causing national and international shock. This led President Lyndon Johnson to send the Voting Rights Act to Congress, promoting advances in electoral equality. The Freedom Riders, a group protesting racial segregation on interstate buses, were attacked on May 14, 1961, when a vehicle was set on fire by a racist mob in Anniston, Alabama. With local authorities failing to act and the Federal Bureau of Investigation having prior knowledge, the action exposed institutional prejudice and brought national and international attention to the civil rights movement, helping push legal changes against segregation. 4 black students, Joseph McNeil, Franklin McCain, Ezel Blair Jr., and David Richmond, began a peaceful protest on February 1, 1960, by sitting at the segregated counter of the Woolworth store in Greensboro, North Carolina, challenging racial discrimination. They remained firmly silent until the store closed. The act inspired mobilizations in more than 50 cities, marking the civil rights struggle in the United States and increasing pressure for desegregation. An operation by United States immigration agents in Matrix, Texas, took place during the 1954 migrant enforcement campaign known as the Wetback Raid, when thousands of Mexican workers were detained and deported in an offensive against illegal immigration. This action reflected social and political tensions along the southern border, marking a controversial episode in United States immigration policy, with lasting impacts on human rights and relations between the United States and Mexico. Henrietta Lacks, diagnosed with a serious cervical disease at age 31 in 1951, had her cells collected without permission at Johns Hopkins by George Gay, who discovered their unique ability to reproduce endlessly in the laboratory. HeLa cells drove research that produced vaccines, virus treatments, and advances in oncology, generating billions. Henrietta died that same year without knowing the impact, while her family remained unaware for more than 2 decades and received no compensation. Mary Mallon, known as Typhoid Mary, was the first identified healthy carrier of a bacterial infection in the United States, working as a cook in New York in the early 20th century. An Irish immigrant, she transmitted the condition without showing symptoms, highlighting the importance of monitoring asymptomatic carriers in public health. Her case marked an advance in sanitation practices and sparked debate over individual rights versus collective protection. Thomas Hicks won the gold medal in the marathon at the St. Louis Olympics in 1904 in a race marked by an unusual episode. During the race, his trainer gave him a stimulant mixture considered dangerous, which was common in the poorly regulated sports practices of the time. Hicks crossed the finish line extremely weakened and had to be carried, but his victory was confirmed. At the time, performance substances were not yet banned, since the official list only appeared in 1967. Between 1892 and 1954, Ellis Island received more than 12 million immigrants seeking a new life in the United States, but they faced quick medical screening that could decide their future. Doctors used chalk to mark symbols such as H for heart problems, E for eyes, and X for possible cognitive limitations, directing people to stricter inspections. About 2% were denied entry, causing family separations that deeply affected immigrant communities. The Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 banned Chinese immigration to the United States, reflecting the racial prejudice of the time. Chinese workers, essential in building the Transcontinental Railroad in the 1860s, faced inspections and removals in neighborhoods they had helped create. The law remained in force for 61 years, until 1943, when China became an ally in World War II, limiting recognition of Chinese contributions to history and influencing immigration and cultural policies. The practice of picture brides between 1907 and 1921 involved marriage by correspondence between Japanese immigrants in the Pacific and women sent from Japan, forming families in response to a shortage of women. This practice reflected cultural adaptation and the challenges of diaspora, but it created social and political suspicion in the United States. In 1921, the government restricted these marriages and during World War II promoted the confinement of descendants, marking a controversial chapter in immigration policy. Saartjie Baartman, a young South African woman of the Khoikhoi people, was taken to Europe in 1810, where she was presented as a curiosity under the name Hottentot Venus and shown in London and Paris to crowds fascinated by her physical features. Treated through the colonial scientific views of the time, her story reflected prejudice and colonial objectification. After she died at the age of 26, her remains stayed in European institutions until 2002, when they were returned to South Africa for a dignified burial. If you enjoyed this video and want to support the channel, please use the Super Thanks tool below. Your contribution helps us keep bringing you amazing historical content. Thank you so much for your support, and see you in the next video.